Hey everyone, Corey Baumeister here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about building a Modern Horizons 3 sealed deck for the very first time. I'm also going to give you 5 tips and tricks on ways to help optimize your sealed building process. And then at the end, you guessed it, we're going to be building ourselves a sealed deck right here on this video. Now, first and foremost, the most important thing when building a Modern Horizons 3 sealed deck is going to be the fixing. You need to be able to cast your bombs, and you need to have a good consistent mana base so you don't stumble in a format that's as powerful as Modern Horizons 3 is. So that brings me to some of the most powerful pieces of lands that we've ever seen for fixing in limited in maybe ever. It's the landscape lands. These lands are so incredible. Take a peek at these. Not only being able to come into play untapped and tap for mana. Of course, this is only colorless mana, so it's not going to help you fix the turn you play it, but there is plenty of Eldrazi in this set where colorless mana is actually an advantage. So these lands can be an advantage before you even sacrifice them. Then we get to the second part of these cards where you can sacrifice them for one of 3 basic lands. Now there's 10 of these landscape cards, so you can really find at least 2 to maybe 5 of these lands that will fit perfectly into whatever 3-color mana base or more that you decide to play in an MH3 sealed deck. And if that wasn't good enough, these lands all cycle for the 3 basic land types that you can fetch up from these lands. Truly unbelievable lands, and these should be something that you are looking for right away when building your first sealed pool. Next up are the bombs. Now these are the best cards in your sealed deck, and these should be something you're trying to incorporate into your final deck at all costs. Whether it be just including them into your base colors that you plan to play, or with all the great fixing we were just talking about, you should try to splash these cards as much as you can. Now, some sealed decks are going to have a 2-color base splashing a 3rd color, maybe even splashing a 4th color, depending on how easily splashable your bombs are and how greedy you want to make your mana base. My personal favorite bomb in the set is Hiragast. This card is sweet, and it just gives me vibes of Bedlam Reveler all over again. The third most important thing, which could be arguably the most important thing when it comes to playing in a sealed deck, is removal. Without removal, you are just going to absolutely crumble to your opponent's bombs. You may have the best creature deck you have ever seen, but without any removal to back it up, you are just going to lose to your opponent's first rare, and the games aren't going to look very close. I would rather play this medium Rakdos deck that has 4 pieces of removal spells than this busted Celestia deck that has 0. The good thing about MH3 Sealed is there is a lot of powerful threats and a lot of powerful bombs, which is going to make the gameplay extremely exciting. But there's a lot of really good answers for bomb, even at the common level. Let's take a look at some of the bread and butter common removal spells that we're going to be seeing a ton of when it comes to MH3. First, we have Dog Umbra. Dog Umbra is awesome. It's already a pacifism for 1 colorless, 1 white. A creature can attack or block. That's already great removal. But let's say you just have the best creature on the battlefield, you can equip Dog Umbra onto your own threat, and anytime they have a removal spell for it, the Dog Umbra goes away and you get to keep your bomb. Wither and Bloom is another extremely nice card. Being able to have 1 colorless black, give a creature -3/-3, that's already going to be premium removal spells. But the fact that you can exile it from your graveyard to put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control adds that next bit of oomph for Wither and Bloom. There's also a lot of token synergies in this set that you're going to find as you start building your sealed decks. Utter Insignificance is a card that's not exactly 2 mana destroy a creature, but it has flash to make up for it, and you're able to really do some damage in combat. And then, of course, if you want to put the extra mana into it, you can exile the creature straight away. Fanged Flames might be my favorite piece of common removal in this set, as 2 mana for 4 damage is already way above rate. Usually you got to pay 3 mana for that much damage, but the fact that you get to exile that creature or Planeswalker as well really helps with some of the reanimating strategies in MH3. Green kind of gets the worst of the removal spells once again, as green usually gets the most powerful creatures. So Horrific Assault can kind of be blown out if you do have your creature die with Horrific Assault on the stack. But if you can resolve this, if you can play a creature and Horrific Assault something in the same turn, you're going to be very far ahead. And oh yeah, if you have an Eldrazi, you get to gain a little life as well. So those are all your good pieces of removal. They're gonna make every single sealed deck you have, and you're gonna be very happy to play them. But cards you're gonna be absolutely ecstatic to play are the pieces of uncommon and rare removal that they have in this set. Let's check them out. First up is Consuming Corruption. If you are a black-based deck and you can play somewhere around 8 to 9 swamps, this card is going to really shine. You could be racing your opponent and all of a sudden have 5 swamps in play, deal with their biggest creature they have, and gain 5 life. That's really gonna swing any kind of racing scenario that you have going on in your game. But let's check out my favorite piece of removal. It's Abstruse Appropriation. This piece of removal is incredible. Not only is it instant speed, so you can cast this at the end of your opponent's turn after they just cast their biggest bomb, but after you exile it, you can then cast their bomb. A truly backbreaking piece of removal that your opponent is almost always going to crumble to. Next up are the double face cards. These might be my absolute favorite cards in Modern Horizons 3. Let's take a look at some of these extremely powerful cards. Not only are these cards really good at preventing non-games, thanks to the fact that if you need a land, well, it's a land. And if you are getting flooded, well, you can just play the card. But on top of that, they are just really strong cards and they fit into so many decks thanks to the hybrid mana cost. Make sure to look for these really sweet cards if you need a couple more playables in your sealed deck. Now, when I'm building a sealed deck, I like to count these cards as land. So you want to make sure not only the front side of the card is good in your deck, but the back side, the land works out for you. So you can't just put them in any old deck. Our last tip when it comes to building a Modern Horizons 3 is the Eldrazi. No, not these Eldrazi. We already know these Eldrazi monsters are powerful and will likely win you the game on the spot, but I want to talk about these Eldrazi. Ethereum Terramander, Westgate Battle Mage, Spawn Gang Commander, Basking Brood-Scale. These cards are going to be great in sealed because they are really nice mana sinks and allow you to play them early and have something to do with your mana when the game goes late. Mana sinks are very important in sealed and you should be on the lookout for them in your sealed pool. Now, I would be doing you all a disservice if I didn't bring up the flavor of the set because some of these card names are just absolutely hilarious. They really hit with all of the enfranchised Magic players and all the new players alike, seeing some of the classic old cards that live within these new Modern Horizons 3 cards. Here are some of my favorites, starting with Frog Mirror Enforcer. You can pay 4 mana for the Frogmite, or you can pay 7 mana for Mirror Enforcer, a classic callback to Mirrodin. We have Gravedig, where you can entwine it to make it the very classic, iconic card of Gravedigger. And then, of course, you have Mog Mob, which is just 3 Mog fanatics in a trench coat. I absolutely love the flavor of this set. It cracks me up every time I see one of these small Easter eggs within the card. Now, enough talking about Modern Horizons 3 sealed deck building. Let's build one. All right, here are our 6 booster packs of Modern Horizons 3. Let's get to opening and building our sealed pool. The first thing I like to do before even looking at the cards, before showing them to my buddies next to me, I like to open them and sort them out because, well, you have a finite amount of time to build these sealed decks, and the more time that I waste sorting cards, the less time I have to try out new sealed pools. You'll see in the top right corner, I am taking out all the basic lands and tokens, as those are things you don't need right away. And then I'm sorting everything into piles. All the colors, we see multicolored, and then our lands / fixing in the bottom right-hand corner. I like to keep my rares and my mythics up top. We're gonna look through those a little bit more closely after we get done sorting because, well, these are the best cards in your pool most of the time, and they paint a good picture of maybe the direction that your sealed pool should be going in. So as I finish up all these sortings here, I kind of haven't really looked at my cards yet. I'm going to just make sure to do this as fast and efficiently as possible. And I think this is a good habit to get into if you are looking to play your first sealed deck or maybe your first Modern Horizon 3 sealed deck, as this saves a lot of time. So there's all my colors. Now I want to start with the rares and mythics. These are going to paint the pictures of what cards I really want to try to play, and it will give me an idea if my pool is good or not. Now we see Nethergoyf. This is going to be a card that's going to be very good and constructed. In limited, not so great as you don't fill your graveyard that much. We also have our gigantic Rakdos monster. Imscree, the Iron Eater, also really good, and then some other really good Jund cards. So that's the first thing I'm noticing is my Jund pairing just looks very, very strong. Having 2 rare lands, not gonna lie, is not great. This format has such great fixing that you don't want your rare slots to be taken up by some of the most powerful fetch lands in the history of time, Wooded Foothills and Polluted Delta, but it is what we got, so we're going to make the best of it. You see me pointing out the Jund cards. These are definitely where I want to start my focus after I start sorting my colors. So now we're going to get these multicolors back into one pile, and we're going to put the green cards and the black cards into their respected piles as well. And we're going to start looking over our things. But first, I always like to look over fixing. Fixing is just kind of the building blocks for your pool and will really let you know how many colors you are allowed to play, essentially. Now, here is a lot of fixing. You'll also see I have some of these double face cards. These mobile double face cards I think are also incredible for the game, but I like to put them in the land slot. What I get from this amount of fixing is, well, my fixing is great and I should be able to play a lot of colors. Now we're gonna get rid of those and we're gonna start bringing out our individual colors, starting with our Jund colors because I think they're the best. Now what you're seeing me do is sort them with creatures up top and my spells, my removal, and non-creatures on the bottom. 5 creatures is a little low for green, so nothing amazing here. We do have a couple decent removal spells in the green slot, as well as a couple rares. So, you know, green is still pretty good, but nothing that gets me crazy overly hyped. Now let's go to black. Black is a lot better. And you see me turn a couple cards sideways. Normally you see these cards in the bottom right-hand corner. Those are usually cards I don't want to play. I'll be rectifying that problem because Mindless Conscription is an amazing card no matter what. I read it wrong right away. You should always play that one. But Buried Alive is very much a build around. So I put it to the side. That's a card that I won't be playing unless I have a Reanimator strategy. Same thing though, putting creatures up top and my removal spells at the bottom in black, and it looked okay. Now let's take a look at our next color. This is red. Now red is an interesting color in this pool. We have a lot of extremely powerful creatures. Some of them rather expensive, but they will have the keyword of affinity for artifacts, something that we'll be keeping an eye on a little bit later, but overall, red looked pretty strong to me. Now I'm doing the same for blue. Blue is extremely interesting as well. There's only 2 and 3 drops and they add mana. There's not a lot of power. I pretty much dismissed blue from the very beginning. So I like to set that color up top like that as it's something I'm not very interested in. Now white is a color that is not really in our Jund, you know, frame of mind as the ability to play our multicolored cards and stuff like that, but it has great removal. We see those pacifism style of effects down there, 3 pieces of removal, which are great, and the creatures are fine. So I'm gonna be putting the white aside and looking to do something with that after I first try out this Jund deck. This Jund deck is what I still think looks to be the best. So I'm gonna start with that, but I'm having the white cards in the back of my mind. Now what you're gonna see is we're just gonna actually build the pool here. We're gonna try to see what a Jund deck looks like if I wanna favor green-black, if I wanna favor red-green, or if I wanna just be an even green-red-black deck, which most of the time in sealed deck, that's not correct. This sealed deck with this much fixing, I think you can safely be just a 3-color deck, which is what I'm trying right now. I'm trying to be as greedy with my powerful cards as I can be because I think MH3 is going to be an extremely powerful set. So you need to be doing big things often. So now you'll see me kind of count cards here as I'm really looking for that magical number 23 playables and then 17 lands. Still very much the same kind of thing I look for. I'm really looking right now if I can even play Imscree Iron Eater, and there I go. I cut it right away. I cut the other giant 7-drop that has affinity for artifacts. The affinity for artifact stuff is going to be so good in draft, but it's a lot tougher to make happen in sealed unless you kind of get the perfect cards. So here is just a good Jund deck. I think that is very strong. So I'm putting it in the right-hand corner. That's 23 playables. I'm ready to go with that. So if time starts to get called or something when I'm building the sealed deck, I'm just gonna submit that Jund deck and go from there. But since I still have a little extra time, I'm gonna try out these white cards and see if I like maybe an Abzan deck, just an Orzhov, maybe just a Celestia deck, and see how it works. There were some good support cards in there, and I'm trying to see if that's a possibility. at the end of the day, I don't see the power in the creatures as much without our red cards. So I'm deciding against it. I'm just putting our Golgari cards there, adding the red cards again. I'm going to do the final checks to this, as I'm quite happy with this Jund deck and how it turned out. Now the tough part, here's the mana base. You see those 3 Jund cards that I have them counted as lands because, well, if I'm flooding out, of course I'm gonna play them as spells, but I want to count them as lands to really help out with mana flooding pretty much at all times. So now you see my little piece of paper there. I added up all the mana symbols and we got 10 green, 10 black, 11 red. So that is gonna dictate how I build my mana base. So you see right now, I have the 7 dual lands, 7, I would say non-basic lands because they're not all duals. We see the Barbarian Reen and then just a forest there essentially with the other side of the flip card. I'll count those as mountain and forest, but the other lands I will very much count as the pips they help for. So now I'm going to, with a 10, 10, 11 mana symbol, most sets that's kind of scary as you should usually cut down on one of those 3 color pairs and that should be your splash color. With how good the fixing is and with just how powerful my red cards are and the fact that they are just like double red, I really want to just go pretty even with this. There is some world where maybe this should have just been a Golgari deck and cut the red cards, but I really think we needed a little bit more power. And I wanted to demonstrate how amazing the mana base is and kind of what you can do in this format. So now that we got that, we're gonna figure out exactly how many lands. So that's 7 non-basic lands. So we have 10 basic lands that we can put into play. I'm for sure gonna need one of each as the landscapes all fetch up basic lands. So that's easy. Get that out of the way. Now I have 7 lands left. I still feel like it's a fact that I'm going to need at least 1 more of each, but I'm recognizing I don't have as many black sources, so I added a ton right away. So now if you look, I have 5 swamps, 6, 7, 8 sources for black. That's usually plenty. So now you're gonna see me do the same for green and red. Make sure I have that's about the same number of swamps and black sources there, around that 7, 8, or 9 range, as I do want the mana to be pretty flat across this sealed deck. So gonna see me do that. And then after that, there's only one thing to do, and that's shuffle up, draw your first hand, and get to playing some Magic. So that was my first experience with Modern Horizons 3 sealed deck. If you want to play MH3, you can play the new set as early as June 7th through the 13th. Happy gaming!